Right, I think we're good to go on that. All right, great. So I'm going to cover real quick the objectives of this program, why we're all here today. So the objective of this program is to make competitively awarded grants to nonprofit and public entities to serve Minnesota's entrepreneurs and business owners. Um, and what is this about? It's about supporting the startup growth and success of Minnesota entrepreneurs and small business owners through the delivery of no-cost, high-quality professional business development and technical assistance services, with a particular focus on underserved populations and geographies, including individuals who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, veterans, people with disabilities, LGBTQ plus individuals, low-income individuals, and rural Minnesotans. So that's what we're going to be covering today, what this program is about, how to actually submit a proposal to the program. I'll cover the agenda in a second, but before we go any further, I do want to do some introductions from Deed's side. I want to, once again, I don't think even said my name. My name is Brandon Toner, so I lead the community partnerships team. Once again, our grant making shop within the Office of Small Business Innovation. I'm also joined by our program manager who oversees this program, Nadia. Nadia, you want to say hi quick?
Hello, everyone. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
And then I also want to give an opportunity for our executive director of the Office of Small Business Innovation, Neela Molgard, to just say hi and welcome folks here. Neela?
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's a joy to be with all of you. Um, our office, the Office of Small Business Innovation, serves our entrepreneurs, our startups, our small businesses, and the organizations that support them, like many of you on the call. Our office includes our small business development centers, our small business assistance team, our childcare office, our Launch Minnesota programming, and then our community partnerships team that Brandon leads. And in our office and within all those program areas, the three real key pillars that we focus on is increasing access to capital for our businesses, increasing the capacity of our businesses to start and grow, and then increasing the connectivity across our state. So our businesses and our entrepreneurs have the resources that they need to be successful. So this small business assistance grant really is vital to fulfill our mission. And so I thank our current grantees for the incredible impact that they have had. I thank you for your interest in this grant program, and obviously thank Brandon and his team for executing it so well. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Okay, so let's cover the agenda. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the timeline, the goals and objective of this program, and then talk about the details of the RFP, go over how to actually submit a proposal. We'll talk a little bit about the evaluation and award process, and then looking ahead, should you be awarded, what receiving and managing that state grant might start to look like. And then we'll save some time at the end for Q&A. So there's a lot of details to cover. Once again, the definitive source for all this information is going to be the RFP itself, but we want to make sure we hit the highlights here so that it's a little bit easier to navigate all those details in the RFP. Timeline, RFP is out as of the 11th. Today's the 19th, at least I think it still is. And then please get us your questions by September 10th. We want to get those questions, the answers published so people can actually absorb those answers and should it impact their proposal. So please get those questions to us by the 10th. And then the 19th is the deadline to submit those proposals. And then we hope to make award notifications in October and kick off the contract negotiation and execution process, hopefully wrapping up no later than end of November, but obviously time is of the essence there. So we'll try to get through that as quickly as we can. Okay, some details. Available funding. How much funding is available? So these are grant awards for 2 years. Think about a 24-month performance period, October 2025 through October 2027. The maximum award for a single award is $400,000 per year, so $800,000 total. And a total of $2,588,000 is available per year, so that's a total of $5.1 million. We expect a number about 10 to 28 awards. Last cycle we did 41, but that was almost twice the funding. So we expect to be making less awards this time around just for lack of available funding. But we were happy to be able to preserve as much funding as we could through the last legislative session. Quick note on matching, there's no minimum required match, but it's encouraged and it does impact your evaluation score. So More is better, but we ask to at least have 50% minimum match to get the maximum amount of points available under that budget piece. Another note here is that the budget request will be per year, and both years must equal the same amounts. We have the same amount of funding per year, so they have to be equal amounts, even though maybe the match might look different on your end. So if you're requesting 300,000, it's going to be 300,000 per year, right? One thing we want to talk about right now is regional funding targets. So there's only so many resources to go around, and so we want to set some targets to make sure that we're hitting regional equity. This program is meant to serve statewide, and so what does that look like? And roughly, it's 50% of the funding is going to be targeted towards the Twin Cities Metro, the 7-county metro, with the remaining 50% of funds targeting Greater Minnesota. And we expect the funding to fall anywhere between 100 and 400,000 per year for our Greater Minnesota regions. These regions are defined by the Minnesota Compass regions, or what other people might call the Initiative Foundation regions. There's 6 regions, and then there's the 7th region, which is the Twin Cities Metro. And we expect to make anywhere between 1 and 3 awards. And then we're setting aside 10% of the funding for, if any come forward, for what we call statewide providers. We'll talk about the different models that we expect to get. And so once again, we expect there probably be some folks coming forward saying, hey, I want to serve the entire state with these specific set of services. So that's what we're targeting there. We'll see what we get, but that's our aspiration. Now, what are our priorities for this funding? This is continuing on from the last cycle. We're just naming out loud what we're seeing out there as the opportunities, and we see those as equity, innovation, and vibrancy. What do we mean by equity? That means empowering an inclusive economy in which entrepreneurship and business ownership is a path towards equitable prosperity and community wealth building. Innovation, supporting new technologies and new businesses. Growing the Minnesota economy that way. And then vibrancy, revitalizing main streets through growing small businesses that are centers of community and culture building, and helping to make Minnesota a great place to live, work, and play and invest. Now, when we say priorities, what we're asking respondents to do is say out loud, like, where does their proposal fit within these categories? Is this really focused on equity? Is this focused on innovation? Is it on vibrancy? Is it potentially all three? We totally welcome that, but we just want people to articulate out loud, this is going to be the priority that we're focused on. What that does is helps us understand what are the needs and the demands for the funding, and to make sure that our awards reflect the demand. So if we're getting a lot of proposals for equity-based or vibrancy-based projects, then we know, oh, okay, this is where the energy's at, this is where the opportunity is. So it's just a helpful way to conceptualize the overall strategy that a proposal is coming forward with. So in terms of program and project models, we are identifying 3 kind of models that we expect proposal to come forward with. And this is not to say that there isn't other models. We just think that these are the 3 models that 95% of proposals will fall into, but maybe there's another model that you want to propose. You're welcome to make that case. But here are the models that we see potentially coming forward. The first model is a regional provider. What we mean by this is a project led by a single organization that provides maybe a narrow or specialized set of services to all potential clients in that regional service area. A regional coalition. This is maybe something we've defined in the past as like collaboration and partnerships, but we want to broaden that definition and give folks a little bit more flexibility here. And what we mean by a regional coalition is this is a coalition of organizations that's hosted by an organization for a regional multi-partner approach to deliver more comprehensive services to individuals, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. Let me go a little bit further on that. What do we mean by comprehensive services? Rarely does a business need one thing to succeed, right? Sometimes it's technical assistance on doing a complex real estate deal or a business transition. Maybe it's lending, maybe it's, incubator services, all sorts of stuff. And what we see as a regional coalition is one that provides a broader suite of services with multiple providers that are going to deliver the most impact for that specific set of services. So that's what we mean by regional coalition. And then a statewide service provider, we expect there might be some opportunities for projects that are led by a single organization like a regional provider, but it's a much more specialized set of services to all potential clients in all regions of the state. Maybe it's some specific type of training or resource or knowledge exchange. So, people can nominate themselves as, well, I want to be a statewide provider. And yeah, so that covers the models. Let's talk about eligibility real quick. So this is meant for nonprofit organizations and public entities that are providing these services. This is not meant for the businesses themselves to receive funding directly, nor is it for providing financial assistance to end recipients. This is really about the service providers, empowering and resourcing those service providers to provide those great services at no cost to the user. Not for-profit organizations cannot be a direct grantee through this program, though we expect some proposals may include private consultants and vendors that supplement or add capacities to proposals. That's perfectly reasonable, but the lead fiscal agent and grantee needs to be one of these nonprofit or public entities. Once again, proposals are actively encouraged from organizations that serve underserved populations and geographies. Once again, Black, Indigenous, people of color, veterans, people with disabilities, LGBTQ plus individuals, low income, and includes people from rural Minnesota. So what can you actually use the funds for? It has to be directly related to delivering grant objectives and can include personnel, fringe benefits, travel, equipment, supplies, contractual. And if you are working in partnership or in coalition, we can also structure those as subgrants. Expenses not directly related to delivering grant objectives can include administrative costs. What do we mean by administrative costs? Those are those costs that are not directly related to delivering grant objectives. That could be things like rent and utilities. You got to keep the lights on, and your organization may be running several different programs, and so it's perfectly reasonable to have a portion of those costs be charged to this specific grant to make sure that the program can run. So no more than 15% of the total grant awards can be dedicated to those administrative costs. And in terms of what is ineligible, pretty common sense stuff. You can't use this funding to raise more funding, pay taxes, except on those like fringe benefits and things like that. Can't use it for lobbyists, bad debts, parking violations, staff employee bonuses, capital expenses. You can't remodel your lobby or anything with these funds, nor can you use these funds to provide direct financial assistance to businesses in the form of like loans or grants. We have programs for that. That's not what this program is. This is about providing technical assistance services. Let's talk about collaboration and matching. Once again, programmatic partnerships and collaborations between organizations are eligible and encouraged to apply. Should it meet the needs of your program objectives? The proposal must identify lead fiscal agent. In the end, there's somebody signing a contract. That organization signing that contract is going to be that lead fiscal agent. When it comes to, we have to address collusion. This is a competitive program. Do not share the content of your proposal with other responders to the RFP. Now, a common question that comes up is like, well, we want to put a coalition together. How do I talk to people? I don't know if they're applying. That's perfectly reasonable. A conversation and figuring out your coalition requires some conversation, but what you can't shop your RFP and or your proposal and share. That's actually non-public information. And so as long as you're sharing that content with your identified formal programmatic partners, that's obviously all fine. But it needs to be a fair process and competitive process. Once again, budget should identify sources of any project matching dollars. And we are also taking in consideration, we want to know are there other state dollars that are being utilized here? In terms of matching, let me address this. Federal dollars, are those considered matching? Yes, absolutely. Private dollars, are those considered matching? Absolutely. We love that. Private foundations, whatever the other private sources. That's all what we would consider match, including other like foundation dollars or whatever. Other state dollars are not considered matched. We can't leverage state dollars against state dollars, but we do want to know if you are utilizing state dollars in your program. Maybe you're getting a grant from somewhere else, or it's a legislatively mandated grant. We want to know that, and we'll take that into consideration. Great. So I think that covers most of the program details. I'm going to hand it over to Nadia to walk us through the actual proposal format and submission process itself. And then Nadia, just let me know when you want me to change slides. I'll kind of keep track, but if I'm missing it, let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brandon. Hello, everyone. Once again, I'm Nadia Deniger. I am the program manager for Small Business Assistance Partnerships. Some of you have interacted with me a lot. Some of you are new here. Welcome to all of you. I just added a link in the chat. That is where all the information is posted for Small Business Assistance Partnerships, which I'll call SBAP from now on. All the information about that will be posted at that link. You scroll down through our other grants and choose this one, and then that is where just a note, we will post this recording and the FAQ as we update that through time. So please continue to go back to that website. We will post updates there, and that website also has information on how you apply, which for those of you who are joining on the phone, you will be sending an email to mnsbp.deed@state.mn.us. And so that's where you'll email if you have questions. Then from there, we can add to the FAQ, and that's where you'll submit a PDF of your application to us. So it's we have a lot of acronyms there, so I'm sure you all are used to that. And once again, applications will be due September 19th. If you go to that link, you can access the application, which I will be walking through now, so you can put a picture to what we're discussing. Starting with the project summary. This is your organizational information. This is your legal information, physical address, tax ID, and who's the lead of your organization and who will be the lead of the program of running this grant within your organization. So that's where we collect all that information off the bat. We will also ask if you, oh, sorry, Brandon, you can go ahead to the next slide. Let me dial it back here. Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you. So perfect. And so that's where we will be asking. Oh, sorry, the lights shut off in the room I'm in. It didn't sense me. That's where we'll be asking for your name, your contact information, your tax IDs, and your Secretary of State registration. If it seems like I got darker here, you're not crazy. So there we provide links to that website so you can check in on your registration. We also ask that you please update your SWIFT payment information. A lot of those addresses become, they're no longer accurate, and it makes the process go much smoother if all that stuff is updated before you even put in your application. So all the links are provided on the application itself to update those. Then you get into the meat of the proposal, the summary itself, a name for your proposal, a brief summary, kind of giving more information about your organization, just kind of a punchy paragraph about it. And that's where you'll request the funds, the number of dollars you're looking for, matching funds, and that's where you get into the numbers portion of it a little bit. After that, we will ask if you're applying as a coalition, individual organization, as Brandon mentioned earlier. You will also tell us a bit about what services you're providing: consulting, education, access to capital. So there's you can certainly pick more than one. We know a lot of these programs are multi-pronged, so that's where you'll make that selection. And there you'll make the selection of what themes, so equity, innovation, vibrancy, you're focusing on. Also on the application are links to how we assess our regions. So you will be able to assess accurately if you're in the Northwest, Twin Cities, Central, just to make sure we're all on the same page definition-wise. So please follow those definitions. That portion, all those questions are required on the application, but they're scored separately, so from the rest of the application. Excellent. So if you're following me and you scroll down, we'll get into more of the narrative responses. The first portion of this is experience, capacity, and record of success. Here is where you tell us more about your organization, what services you provide to your region or the groups that you service. So record of success specifically in providing technical assistance to entrepreneurs, the qualifications of your staff to provide this assistance and those you regularly work with, your partners. The capacity to deliver culturally and linguistically relevant services for the proposed client base. And is the project consistent with the size and capacity of your organization? Are your goals, do they align with how many people you have available, what services you can offer, and the region, the number of available people in your region? Next slide,
And
please.
I'll just offer a note. We should include in the slide, but like if you are submitting as a coalition, are you writing it on behalf of the fiscal agent or the coalition as a whole? If you are proposing a coalition model, you are writing this proposal on behalf of the entire coalition, right? So it's a bit to wrap your head around, but like all the questions are framed as a single organization, but it's either organization or if you're proposing a coalition as a coalition. So just want to add that note of clarity there. And next slide.
Thank you. And I just saw real quick in the chat, most of the questions we'll answer at the end. But I saw Krista, you asked if there's information about the cannabis industry you're seeing. If you downloaded the RFP and the application at the very beginning when we first posted it, the wrong application RFP were posted. So please go back to that link and upload the new documents there. And I'm sorry for the trouble there. Thank you for asking. Just let us know if those should. Okay, great. Thank you, Krista. And
that was a test to see how on top of things
yes,
people are. So
yes, test passed.
Yeah, my bad. My bad on uploading the wrong document. All right.
And so perfect. And so moving on to program design, service delivery, and work plan. This is where you express why there's a need for your organization to conduct this project, to use these grant funds in your area with the groups that you service. You'll tell us more about the delivery model that you're choosing, and what type of businesses this project will serve, what services will be provided, as we went through it before, consulting, webinars, things of that nature. Please get into how exactly you'll deliver this information and these services to your clientele. And what's your timeline? There are at the end of the application, there's going to be a timeline breakdown, a work plan breakdown, so you can really get into it. But this is where you can give your summary, and then we can address the specifics that you mentioned later. Next slide, please. Community engagement and inclusiveness. So what's your plan to get your services out into the community? How are you going to market it? Who are you going to partner up with? That's where you start to talk about that. We also would really like to know what your client process is. How do you sign people up? How do they find you? Are they required to follow a cohort of yours? What is the makeup of your project proposal here? And what outreach strategies, tactics, and tools will you use? And it's always great to mention your level of success with these. If you have tactics you've used for many years or for other state projects, please do mention that. Next slide. Perfect. Thank you. Partnerships, collaboration, and community support. This is also a point to talk about your coalition, but the purpose of this section is to get into who you normally partner with to bring technical assistance tools, to bring entrepreneurial support, and that's not necessarily who you have the coalition with. This is just partnerships you typically have. This could be a consultant or consultant group you work with, and so we want to know the roles and responsibilities of those you're going to bring into the project. And so if you have questions about how that's different from a coalition versus just an individual organization with contractual partners, things like of that nature, please let us know. We can get into the details with you and help you decide how to best convey that. And so for partnerships, we do require letters of commitment and professional references from those partners as a part of your application package. Next slide, please. Okay, performance evaluation and reporting. So the outputs that we will be measuring are number of businesses served, types and quantity of services provided, including hours of service, so hours of webinars offered, those who've attended, one-on-ones, consulting hours, things of that nature, and then the outcomes from that. So the number of jobs created and retained, the average wage of jobs created and retained, and the number of new business formations. So we get more into that on the reporting form, and as I'll speak to later, reporting will be quarterly. And please tell us a bit more in this section about how you will be tracking and reporting the performance on your side, how you follow those metrics on your side. Brandon?
Yeah, I just want to underline or highlight something. We're not requiring use of a customer relation management tool or a case management tool, but we're definitely highly recommending it, and we want to know what your process is. It's not enough to do it. We have to track this stuff. And one of the ways for your proposal to stand out is showing and demonstrating the robustness of your tracking system to maintain those client relationships, to track what you're providing for those clients and what outcomes you're providing. We're trying to strengthen our capacity to collect that information and report it on a programmatic wide basis to demonstrate the value of this great program to everybody. If you're not, consider it. And if you're doing it and you're doing it great, please brag about it and let us know how that's working.
Thank you. And next slide. Thank you. Okay, budget and matching. So as Brandon mentioned earlier, this is a 2-year grant program, and we ask that each year you're requesting the same amount of funds, so half and half of what you're requesting total for a 24-month performance period. Again, match is not required, but it does help your application, and we ask for at least a 50% match. If you're able to meet that, that gives you the most points in that in that realm. So the request should be consistent with the scale and capacity of your organization or your coalition to meet the objectives you're laying out and that we'd like done as well. In the application, you'll get a chance to break down your funding sources. So this is where you can list your match as well from your organization or, as Brandon said, federal dollars or the like. And then we have a budget breakdown that includes line items, personnel, fringe benefits, in-state travel. All of those are already outlined in the budgets. We ask that you stick to those budget line items. If you need to deviate from them, we can speak about that a bit, but these line items make the most sense for this program we've found. So, and if you have questions of what typically fits in where, that email I mentioned earlier would be the place to reach out to ask about that. A change from the last iteration of the SBAP program is that the legislature has made it that a max of 15% of funds could go to your administrative line item versus 10% previously. So that's something we want to note for you all. Next slide, please. Okay, there's several forms to fill out as well. What I mentioned earlier about your work plan, your partnerships, your performance measures, those are all forms 1 through 3 that you'll see. This form is speaking more to the forms required for our risk assessments and putting our contracts together. So ensuring that your unemployment insurance is up to date. This is also something to check and ensure is current. There will also be a form speaking to your performance capacity, where you will describe your staffing, your budget, so we could just have kind of a very direct explanation of that to reference. And there is a document, a form to sign to ensure that there's no conviction of felony financial crime by the principal staff in your organization. And evidence of good standing, as mentioned earlier with the Secretary of State, you'll have to provide that. So another important note is we require, for nonprofits, we require certain forms based on annual revenue. As you can see in the slide, this is based on the amount of annual revenue you get. So we require anything from a 990 form, board reviewed financial statements, certified financial audits. It all depends on your annual revenue. And we will post this. There's a link there that gets into the more updated kind of guidelines we have for this based on how your organization's made up. So I ask that you follow that link once we post this to make sure you're providing everything you need to.
One thing I'll note quick is that
please.
these forms are not evaluated as part of the reviewer process. This is part of the compliance and grant making process. So it's required if you are awarded to pass these certain checks. But it's good to get it on the front end. And we can't evaluate unless we have these. And I'll talk a little bit about risk assessments later. But yeah, next slide.
Yep. Great. So as mentioned earlier, proposals due Friday, September 19th at 5 p.m. Please make sure to hit this time frame. That's central, and we will not consider any proposal submitted after that time. The email address I'd mentioned earlier is on this slide, and please email your application to us, and the application form states that with the subject line SBAP application - your organization name. So all of that is in the application.
And just a note on the size limit, that's a technical issue on our end to make sure it doesn't get rejected. So if you are using don't use a bunch of scanned photos in your proposal. It does not going to impact your evaluation anyways. So yeah, keep it to the text, keep it the size minimum, and maybe even double check before sending it. It breaks our heart every time that we get a proposal at 5:05 p.m. from a great organization, great proposal, but then we also get a proposal 12 hours after that, and we can't accept either. We just can't. We have to draw a line somewhere, and for fairness, and so that's where that line is drawn at 5 p.m. So by all means, get it to us early, just to make sure you get it, and we will send a receipt back to you to confirm that we got it, just so there's all clarity on that. So. And then I think I jump back in, right, Tanya?
Yes.
Let's talk about the review process. So you get the proposal in. Great. What does the award determination process look like? So we have a review panel composed of internal deed staff and leaders and experts, and at least 25% of our panel will be representative of community reviewers. These are people who don't work for the state, who are not deed employees, or state employees, who have raised their hand and said, hey, I have some expertise to bring to the table. I'm an expert in my community in terms of economic development, or I'm passionate about it. And they raise their hand to volunteer to help us review those proposals, so that we have a diversity of perspectives across a variety, a diversity of perspectives, to make sure it's not just us and our sometimes overly technical way of looking at things. It represents truly the community approach for this. We want to make sure it's representative and responsive to community needs. And so we'll have community reviewers as well. That recommendation is made to the commissioner. He has the final say. And we hope award determinations will be made by end of October. It's a pretty tight timeline, but we're going to do our best to keep things moving along, because we want these funds to get out the door. We want you all to keep up the great work, or get the great work started for your organization. But that being said, projects cannot start until contracts are executed. So we don't want to leave you in a situation where you've incurred costs and we can't reimburse you because the contract wasn't executed. So we'll always be very clear with you when the start time is. Um, so if you are awarded, what is that going to look like? You will receive an official award letter with the final award amount. Oftentimes that may be different than what you requested. We're going to try to keep folks uh, at 100% of their request, but we never know how it's going to shake out in terms of what proposals are competitive and recommended versus our geographic and equity needs. And sometimes that requires some adjustments and awards to make sure that we can hit all our targets. If the award amount is different from the request, you will need to submit an updated work plan and budget. You'll have some flexibility there. You still have to, it's the same project, the same proposal, but you can, adjust some of the line items around. Once again, if there's documents you need to submit for a pre-award risk assessment, you can do that. And then we have to do those risk assessments before we will tell you whether or not you've been preliminary accepted for award. Then we will go through the pre-award risk assessment, and then we'll make a determination of risk of making this grant to your organization or coalition. And then if there are risks identified, we will negotiate with you on remediation steps or whatever they might call it to mitigate those risks. We do have the authority to not award if the risk assessment is sufficiently risky. But if you got away all the way through the proposal process, obviously you have a very competitive proposal. It's very unlikely you're going to have a risk, but we do have to look and ask those questions. At most, usually the typical case is it may lead to some extra conditions on the contract just to make sure we stay in line and we mitigate any risk we've identified. Just something to be aware of. So once that's all done, you get that contract, you review it, you sign it, send it back to us, and we will get you back an executed grant contract with a clear date when you can start incurring expenses, and you're off and running. We do operate on a reimbursement basis. Typically, it's either submitted. Oh, we'll talk about this in a second. But we have the payment request process. There'll be monitoring visits, reporting, and of course the closeout process. Let's talk a little bit about payments and reporting. So we ask that you'll submit reimbursement payment requests at least quarterly, or no longer than one quarter will go by before you send a payment request. And as frequently as monthly. We'll work with you on what's going to work best for your organization. And those payment requests will include summary information and the supporting documentation backing that up. And then we will collect performance reporting on outputs and outcomes on a quarterly basis. We'll have an online form. You fill that form out. You let us know what you've been up to and who's benefited from your activities on a quarterly basis. And then there'll be annual reporting, which will include client level details such as location, demographics, services, and more. So once again, we are going to be asking for a lot of information. We are getting greater demands for more information, more granular information. So I just want to underline that if you look at Exhibit A in the RFP, you'll see an example of all the fields and stuff that we would want you to collect, that then we can come back around and say, hey, how many people in this particular region or city, these particular demographics have you served? What services were provided? So it's a lot. I would say it's a lot to collect, and that's why having a good system to collect it is going to be very important for making sure you have a competitive proposal and a successful program. Once again, we encourage and highly recommend utilizing some kind of technology platform to help address that. And with that is what we have. Hey, and we got 19 minutes for questions. If you have questions after this session, you can email those to us. Please get those to us sooner rather than later, but no later than September 10th, because we want to make sure that everybody can benefit from the answers. We have to make sure that all the information is fair and widely shared and everybody has equal access to the information. We will post a FAQ where the RFP is posted. We'll update that regularly. We'll also let you know when it was last updated, so you can keep tabs on that. But with that, I'll open it up to questions right now. And once again, if you do have a question, if you don't mind writing in a chat, that'll be a little bit easier for us to track and repost. But we'll just go in order until we run out of questions. Nadia, what do we got?
Sure. The first question that hasn't been answered yet is a clarification question. So Twin Cities Metro orgs can apply for up to 1.2 million, or is it the 800,000 you mentioned?
The maximum award for a single proposal, the maximum request for a proposal for a single proposal, no matter what model or whatever you're using, is 400,000 per year, right? So that's 800,000 total, 400,000. I'll go back to that slide for regional funding targets just to make sure we're very clear. This is what we expect, the range. It's a loose, we never know what proposals we're going to get or what proposals are competitive coming from those regions. But this is what we expect if we step back and go, okay, how much funding went to central Minnesota? How much funding went to the metro? How much funding went to Southwest? We expect it's going to be somewhere in this range total. So that may be, that may be 3 awards to a particular region, and it's going to add up, I don't know, 380,000. Who knows what it might add up to? But these are the funding targets that we're aiming for and that we expect to get back. So I think it's think about it this way, all right? If we get $10 million in requests from the Twin Cities metro area, first of all, we don't even have $10 million to award, but we're not going to award even the total $5 million towards the metro, even if all those proposals are competitive. We have to kind of compare apples to apples, and we have to step back and go, okay, how much funding to serve the many businesses in the metro, how much funding should we target for that? And that's that $1 million to $1.2 million range, which is roughly about half the funding, which is roughly equal to population. That's not quite accurate, but it's close. About 45-55 greater Minnesota metro split. So that's the regional funding target, not the per proposal funding target, right? So yeah.
Great. Next question is, are startups precluded from this program?
Startups can receive services. Absolutely. So well, are you saying like a startup nonprofit? Maybe somebody can come off mute and clarify what they meant by the question. Like as a new organization.
I
Sharon?
meant like a startup nonprofit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're not excluded, but I will say like it's a stronger case. Like you're going to have to make a strong case to why that organization is going to have the capacity to deliver. We're really leaning on those capacity. And so if it's a newer organization, what's the record of success if it's new? So it's just, I would say like the odds are going to be a bit lower for a newer organization because they're going to have a little bit higher hill to climb to prove their model and demonstrate competencies and capacities to deliver. So they're not excluded, but definitely I would imagine it'd be harder. So.
Great. And we have a few questions about, could you get into the difference between coalition versus subgrants versus partners? Because we do require, even if you're an individual, or not require, but if you have partnerships, how's that different from a coalition?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, regional coalition is meant to be flexible, which is to say vague, right? We want it to be a broad definition where a variety of different models could fit under. But the coalition thing is gesturing towards something more than just an organization saying, I'm going to hire this third party to help me with this piece, right? We think of a coalition as something a little bit more strategic and intentful and collaborative than just like a subgrant or a subcontract, right? Where, and it's not so much, it's not about finding a partner to supplement services you already provide. It's about finding a coalition partner with services that maybe you don't provide, right? and that in coalition, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? I don't think I butchered that, right? That sounds about right.
We get it.
Whereas like a regional, yeah, you get it, right? A regional provider is like, I'm the single organization and I may subcontract or subgrant out for a project that I am leading, right? It is our organization. We're leading this. We have all the capabilities we need, and maybe we're working in partnership. Um, you know, it starts to get pretty blurry. You tell us what you want to do, right? Do you see it as a coalition, or do you see yourself as a regional provider in partnerships? Frankly, what we're looking at is what are the services being delivered? What is the capacities that are there to ensure to the state that it's actually going to be delivered, and how are the end users going to benefit? You can call it whatever you want. This is just we're just trying to provide some conceptual frameworks so that you can conceive of this and get it to us in a way that like we can evaluate this and go, oh, okay, we have a regional provider over here, we have a regional coalition over here. Okay, here's the strengths and merits of that particular proposal, and we can make some funding decisions. So, and I will say like one question that may pop up is like, is one favored over another? Not at all. These are options. What's favored is the competitiveness and the value that you're bringing to the table, um, and how those clients are going to be served. Whatever model gets you there, you tell us, and make the case that this is the best model for our region, for our clients, and these needs.
Great, thank you. Next
Mhm.
question is, what is your advice on reporting outcomes for organizations that only provide technical assistance, workshops, or trainings, and do not know if the people that attended these trainings or workshops went on to start businesses or jobs?
I don't know if I have much advice other than like we would want to know. Like it's not enough to do the work and feel good about doing it. Like it's for outcomes. It's for our people better off for having done it and having participated in your program. So if you're not currently, you should definitely consider how you're going to do that and demonstrate that because our stakeholders, the legislators and the people who voted for them and all that, they did this for a reason to deliver beneficial outcomes for Minnesotans, and that is something that we want to see and track, summarize, and be able to share back out to let people know like the great value of all the work that's being done.
Perfect.
And we recognize that that's hard and expensive.
Yes.
So.
Sure. Next question is, how do we determine who should be included in the certification of no felony convictions? We do have information here. The law states current principles, which includes public officials, board members, staff with the authority to access funds. Did you want to say more about that, Brandon?
No, that covers it. Yeah.
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 And that's in the form.
Yeah, and just so people know, like why and where's this coming from? This is a new legislative requirement. Obviously, we've seen some not in programs like this, but in like some benefit programs, social service benefit programs. We've seen some fraud, and this is just another layer of assurance that the folks that we're working with, don't have a record of scamming folks. So, just another one of those risk factors that we're trying to control for.
The next question is it possible for a coalition with a single granted organization as a grantee to propose to work in all rural regions, but not the Twin City regions? That doesn't seem to be among the eligible combinations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess you think about it this way as like multi-region coalition or multi-region provider. Absolutely. We think about this as like serving at least one region, right? But maybe your project serves multiple regions, but not the entire state. That's perfectly reasonable. Make the case, let us know how that works. Um, you know, and especially like serving rural Minnesotans, there's more commonality between, rural Southwest and a rural region in Northeast than there is necessarily between Rochester, urban metros. Like there is a difference between greater Minnesota urban areas and those rural areas. So, obviously a rural strategy wouldn't necessarily be constrained necessarily by a single region. So that totally makes sense.
Next question. I wonder if DEED would ever consider funding for organizations to adopt specialized CRM software.
Sorry, the question again?
Would DEED consider funding organizations to adopt specialized CRM software? I think another way to ask this is that possible in this grant to use these funds for that?
CRM, I mean, CRM costs and software costs are perfectly reasonable and rational expenses for this program. Like if, let's say you have a CRM subscription service and 50% of your activity you're tracking there is from this grant, then obviously this grant could be used to pay for some, well, we would call that a supply cost, right? It's not a durable good, nor is it a piece of equipment. So, software is obviously perfectly legitimate. We're not, yeah, and we're going to be agnostic as to what software you use. We're not going to pick providers for you. It's your cost. It's your organization. But definitely, I think it's a reasonable cost to share with this grant should you be awarded.
Next question, is a regional coalition required to serve the whole region? The entire region?
I want to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's an exemption to that, why? What's the case? Like, why wouldn't the regional coalition serve the entire region? And just, once again, go back to making that case, right? There's certain, for example, like if it's a rural strategy, well, if it's a rural strategy, and you're serving Southwest and Southern Minnesota, that may not include serving Rochester. Well, that makes total sense for your specific project.
Yes, and we have a box in the application that allows you to go into details of geographic areas served, so you can get into it there as well as other parts of the application. Next question is, if your organization is required to submit their annual audit, but the document is locked and cannot be combined with other files, can it be sent as a separate document? Oh, wait, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a pause on that. Michelle, who asked the previous question, just raised her hand. I want to see if she wants to expand on that. Michelle?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure if we have someone that would be interested in applying in our region that is a regional provider. There are individual organizations that serve subsets within the region. So if we don't have an entity that serves the entire region that would be part of the coalition, would we be precluded then from applying?
I don't know. Absolutely not. And I mean, that's where maybe the advantage of a coalition model can come in, where it's like if you have a large geography and there's no single organization that is going to serve the entire region, but in a coalition, an entire region can be served. That could be a model that could work. You know, so yeah, does that answer your question?
Not entirely. As an organization, we have other funding and mission to serve, actually in our case, a county. So we have a relatively small geographic footprint.
Yeah.
So just not quite sure how to handle this, but we'll figure it out.
I'll be very transparent. How we think about that is we go, okay, a proposal comes forward to serve a single county, right? And as a state program, we're trying to serve the entire state. And how many birds can we hit here with the few stones that we have? And I don't think like a that narrow of a geography is going to be as competitive, right? The question comes up is like, okay, what's the impact here, right? It's going to be very impactful for that county, but what's the regional and statewide impact as we aggregate that up? And that's where we're trying to have this regional approach, where it's like, it doesn't have to be all the counties within the particular region, but a broader area is going to just be more competitive. We're going to hit more areas, more businesses, more entrepreneurs are going to be available and have the opportunity to benefit from that beyond that particular county, right? So that's how we're thinking about it. So it's not a matter of like excluded or included or ineligible or eligible. It's what's competitive, like what is going to deliver the most impact for the dollars and resources that we have. And yeah.
Well, and if there are neglected parts of the state that certain organizations can serve, and the funding request is lower, I think there's there's a lot of nuance to each application. So Michelle, we can talk more about that. You can send me an email and we can chat more about it for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Next question again. If your organization is required to submit their annual audit, but the document's locked and cannot be combined with other files, can it be sent separately?
Absolutely. No problem. Yeah, in terms of the single PDF, like at least the narrative, the summary, all those as forms that for our reviewers' sake are all in one document, right? The other non-competitive, the non-scored forms, those financial risk assessments, if those need to be set separately, that's perfectly fine. Nobody's going to look at those until after we get through the review process. We're just looking to make sure you have them, but then after the award process, we'll actually review those documents. So that's fine.
Will grant funds be all or nothing, or will there be grants with a percentage of funding awarded if there are more requested funds than dollars available? I think Joe joined late and missed when you said that. So
yeah,
which no problem, Joe.
Typically we always face like more great recommended proposals than we have funding for. And so just a little bit more detail the review process works is we go through and it's a simple recommend, don't recommend evaluation for that first pass. And then it's like, okay, here are the proposals that are recommended. What is the funding request on a regional basis? What is the funding request along those priority strategies, the innovation, vibrancy, and equity? And then how do we accommodate as much as possible given the resources? And that's where we go, okay, well, to fund as many of these recommended proposals as possible, that require maybe some haircuts to fit as many proposals as possible. So that's where you may get a revised request back, where it's like, okay, we couldn't fund you at 100%, but maybe it's like 90 or something. So yeah, that's pretty typical. We try to mitigate it and minimize that as much as possible. Related to that, we also try to we try to encourage you to ask for a right size amount for your project and not just ask for the max, like make the case why this specific dollar amount is needed for this specific program, so that we don't just get a bunch of proposals that are just asking for the max, and then, it just makes that process more difficult. So.
And Brandon, it is 2:00 now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to have a bonus round of a couple questions. I will continue to record. Let's say it will offer 5 more minutes for questions to folks who want to stick around. But for folks that have to go, I'll just say thanks for everybody for coming. Thanks for your interest in this program. We're really excited about the work that's been happening under this program, and really excited for this work to continue. And really, it's a lot of work to put these proposals together. It's also not a whole heck of a lot of time to put these proposals together. We're trying to balance time against like getting the money out there. And so I just want to honor and just express my gratitude for all the work that's going to happen. We can't do this without you. And we're very honored to be able to be a part of this. So with that, I'll say, goodbye, but stick around for more questions. So let's do a few more questions and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, we have more here. So if your question isn't answered in the next few minutes, we will be adding it to the FAQ, so it will be answered. And you can always email us to follow up with more. The next question, as I understand the RFP, an organization serving a single county would not be an eligible applicant, but could be part of a coalition. Is that correct? That's an expansion. I think that was asked before you got into it.
I'm not going to use the language of it's a single county proposal wouldn't be ineligible. It would not be as competitive, right? It would have to be, it's going to be a hard, like, think about it, right? If we get a proposal that's for one county and then another proposal that covers that county and like 5 other counties, and that proposal makes a great case, even if that other proposal for a single county makes that equal case, which one would we fund? We're going to fund that proposal of equal merit for a bigger region. right? So it's about the competitiveness of the proposal, not whether or not it's eligible or ineligible. Maybe I could imagine there's like some specific unique need or service or opportunity in that single county that you believe the state should address and should fund. Make that case, I mean, convince the review committee. But yeah, I think it's a harder case to make. So yeah.
Great. As we propose project outcomes, must we project only outcomes that will be achieved within the project period, or do we identify anticipated outcomes? For example, a startup that starts during the project period but not completed until after the project period.
A great question, and I'm not totally sure how to address that because as we know, activity you provide in that 24th month of the performance period, those impacts may not be delivered till after. Obviously, we would encourage you, we want to see the impacts during the performance period. But yeah, I don't have a good answer for that for on the edge of those performance period. Projected are not actual. Reporting on projected should be part of it as part of the work that you're doing, but like an actual verified outcome needs to be an actual verified outcome. So yeah, that's a great question. And we should think about that.
Yeah, in terms of what we need to report, it needs to be hard outcomes that have been achieved. But in your final narrative of your program, you could assess what else is on the horizon and what else has been achieved too. So there's ways to talk about that as well. Next question is, so if an organization has existed long-term contracted professional business consultants who would be providing services under this grant, should they each individually be listed as partners? So they're
Like
consultants.
if they are like if you're working with specific consultants that are not employees, that we would consider that like a contractor, and they should be named if
Yes,
they are
especially
a
if they
part of
have
your
their own.
program.
Yes, if they have their own LLC as well. If I'm.
I mean, maybe they're sole prop too or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if they are
if they're
not an
individual.
employee
Yeah.
and they're essentially a vendor or contractor, they should be, and they're essential to your program, they should be named.
Thank you. Is there
Yeah.
a preference for local organizations with office locations and or staff in state versus national organizations that work in different communities across the United States?
I would definitely say that there's a preference for local-based organizations, Minnesota-based organizations. I'm not aware of ever awarding or even getting proposals from organizations not based in Minnesota. Not to say that they're necessarily excluded, but they definitely have to have Minnesota-based operations with physical presence and services currently being provided in Minnesota. I don't think we would consider a proposal that isn't based in Minnesota and wants to provide services in Minnesota and isn't currently. That makes sense.
Because of the robust nature of data reporting required, is staff time to capture, analyze, and report on outcomes considered a direct or indirect cost of the proposal?
Oh, I would consider that direct costs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's directly related to the program. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
And we want to make sure to answer this question. Do we have a set definition on rural?
Oh, we love this question.
Yes.
And yes, we do. And I don't
I'll
know.
post it in the chat.
Yeah. And obviously anybody who works in rural knows that there's like census definition, there's USDA definition. You tell us what definition you're using and why that definition makes sense for your project, and that'll work for us.
And I am posting the links to those now. Make sure. Great question.
And if anybody
Go ahead.
wants to make the case, we should settle on one definition for all and all time. We are also open to all ears. What we're trying to do, once again, is like our philosophy here, our stance is we want to make this program as a tool and a resource for you all for the work that you're doing. And we want to make sure it works for you. And that even includes going down to the definition of rural and making sure we're using the best definition that makes sense for the programs that we do. With that, I
And-
think we're
We
setting.
just
Oh,
have
go ahead,
one more
Natalie.
question.
Sure,
Just one more.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
that's posted
Go
on
for
there.
it.
So I thought we'd answer that. So in terms
Yep.
of regional coalition, instead of complementing services, would it also be favorable to see a coalition of nonprofits who cover very holistic services and don't need help with a complementing partner, but they provide this only in their region? So each organization works together to cover larger swaths of the state to serve their target client base.
Yeah, I think that's another variation on the theme of like it's either a wider geography or a wider set of services. Absolutely. Yeah, I think
Great.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Great. That's the last question on here. And remember, please email. You could email me, but it's best to email the email we have on the presentation, and it will be posted on the RFP site.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks Nadia for all that and your assistance. And yeah, we look forward to the proposals. And yeah, once again, we want to make sure that all this information and everybody's hearing the same thing. So this will be posted, and please also help spread the word if you need to share this with staff or whatever. Yeah, we're available. We're here. We'll keep you all up to date. And yeah, thanks a lot. Looking forward to reading your proposals.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.